Police Department. In less than a week after this violent incident, two 17-year-old males have been arrested in connection with the stabbing and shooting that occurred last Wednesday at McKinley High School. Excellent police work has gone into this investigation with tremendous cooperation and partnership with the Erie County District Attorney's Office. I had the opportunity on Saturday to visit with the 14-year-old that was stabbed and his mother. The mother is a very strong woman, working to keep her family together, and I just want to recognize her for her strength in a very difficult situation. Having your child injured in this kind of violent fashion is traumatic for the entire family, and really was impressed with the strength of that mother. Actually, I have to say I was inspired by the strength of that mother and what she's doing to hold her family together, given these very difficult and violent circumstances that befell her 14-year-old child. Have been in constant communication with the superintendent of the Buffalo Public Schools. The superintendent has informed me that he and his management team have put a comprehensive plan in place for McKinley High School, including a variety of additional security measures. One of the requests from the superintendent, Dr. Cash, to me is for additional school resource officer support at arrival and dismissal time.
Are you able to say anything about the connection between this suspect and the 17-year-old charged in connection with the stabbing?
I can say that if you recall on Friday, I had stated that we had two groups of kids here, and the two groups of kids had individuals, the 14-year-old victim and 17-year-old number one, along with others, kind of come out of the pack and get involved in the fight, all right? I can say that the shooter was part of, allegedly, the same group as the 17-year-old who was arrested on Friday.
Are you able to take us through a bit of a timeline as to how this all went down? I mean, was this a planned event? I mean, obviously this kid wasn't in school, right? Because he couldn't have come to school with a handgun that day?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Or, yes?
We don't know, Hannah, how far planned it was. We know, or we think we know, that it was planned sometime during the day before 3:45 school got let out. So sometime during that day, there was discussion about let's have a fight later on that day. Whether or not it had been brewing previous to that, at this point we don't know. We're still trying to piece that together, but I can say for a relatively near certainty that the planning precluded the 3:45 dismissal earlier that day.
So my next question then would be, did either of these kids come to school with those weapons and have those weapons in their possession at school last Wednesday?
Well, just so I'm clear, I'm neither confirming nor denying that number. I'll call him the first 17-year-old, 17-year-old number one, okay? I'm neither confirming nor denying if he had a knife, okay? So I can't confirm or deny that part, all right? Whether or not second 17-year-old today, when he brought the gun to the school property, at this point, we're still investigating that. So yeah. I don't know whether or not he got into school with the gun or even went to school that day. We're still looking into that.
The mayor mentioned additional school resource officers at McKinley. How many, and will they be armed? And is it just for McKinley, because there's been issues with violence and fighting at other Buffalo Public Schools?
School resource officers are police officers, so they will absolutely be armed. They are Buffalo police officers. The commissioner and his management team will work with the chief of school safety and security and the school district to determine how many school resource officers will be available for arrival time in the morning and dismissal time in the afternoon.
How closely are you going to be working with Superintendent Cash moving forward, just knowing that, you know, teachers and parents have concerns about school safety in Buffalo?
The city is going to work very closely with the school district. We do have a good, close working relationship with the school district, and as I mentioned, when the incident occurred, I have since that time been in constant communication with the school superintendent, Dr. Cash, speaking multiple times a day, every single day since the incident. Normally we speak about once a week at least.
John, is the ambiguity with the first suspect because there's no video evidence that there was a knife, or that he had a knife, I should say?
I'm not going to comment on the specific pieces of evidence that we have. There was video from McKinley High School, all right? But I guess that you could presume that if, you know, the video was crystal clear, I'd have a crystal clear answer. So you can take that for what it's worth. So, you know, I'm not going to comment though exactly on what the video showed. I can only comment on the fact that right now we believe that there were others who were involved in the beating / stabbing of the 14-year-old. We are obviously fairly certain, but albeit an allegation, that 17-year-old number 1 was part of that group. And we are looking for the others. And not only are we looking for the others, we are trying to specifically figure out who did what. So the 3 things happened. Stabbing happened, beating happened with the hands, and beating happened with the feet. Okay? So stab, punches, kicks. And who exactly did what, we're trying to figure that out. From a legal standpoint, like I said on Friday, I really don't need at the end of the day though to actually figure that out exactly, all right? Because I can, if I find out, and we hopefully will, who all the players were, again, I can just charge them all under Section 20 on the accomplice liability theory, and each one's responsible for what the other one did, no matter what. And that's what I'm hoping to get at.
When were the new SROs going to start? I'm sorry. For the additional SROs?
The new SROs are going to begin when McKinley goes back to school, and they will go through April.
So
at least.
Do you mean this Thursday or the 28th?
This Thursday.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, are you able to, again, we heard 10 SROs split among the school district. Is that number correct? And is it true that that number could have been diminished a bit during the pandemic when students were not attending classes and there may have been less SROs? What's the current count?
The current count of school resource officers is 10. That number was not diminished during the pandemic. And I think one of the other questions was about any needs at other schools. We will be working with the school district to address security and safety needs at other schools as well.
Mayor, does this mean you're going to get the metal detectors out?
I think that was part of Dr. Cash's announcement, that there would be technology that would be employed and that would be purchased that would identify weapons potentially coming into the school and be able to prevent that. So the school district has made the commitment to purchase technology that will identify metals.
Because at one point they had metal detectors and they weren't using them.
That is a school district decision, and the school district has determined that they will be employing technology that will give them the ability to do metal detection.
And speaking of those metal detectors, how do you decide which schools get them, which schools don't, how many go to each school?
Again, that is a question for the Buffalo Public Schools. That is part of the superintendent's comprehensive safety plan that he has been developing with his management team. So for the specifics of that plan, you'll have to speak to Dr. Cash and the school district.
Have either of the weapons been recovered?
I'm sorry.
Not this time.
John,
Okay,
where
say-
did he get the gun?
Yeah,
And
yeah. What kind of gun?
what kind of gun? Is it stolen?
No, well, it's a pistol, handgun, all right? And at this time, we're still looking at where he got the gun, or how he got the gun.
And
And we gotta find the gun first.
okay. And so what are you, I mean, just in general, with how this all played out, is there any evidence that kids were dropped off by people to this fight? Did they come on foot to this fight? Are you suspecting any older people, parents, may have been involved in something like this?
We have
Is
no
this-
indication of that. Of the 15 to 25 kids who were at the fight, we don't have specifics on how they actually got in the parking lot. The majority of them were all in school that day, and again, we can just, and I can tell you before, as I said before, there was talk amongst some members of these two groups in the school that day about getting together after school for a fight, so we can logically presume that they left school and went out in the parking lot.
Are the second suspect's parents part of the reason it took 4 days to apprehend this individual?
No, I wouldn't go that far. I would say that it took 4 days because we had to get the distribution of the Crime Stoppers pamphlet out there, which we got out right away on Friday. And then we had to do an investigation, and tips were called once we put the pamphlet out there. We had to ascertain which one of those tips were good and which ones were not good, and go through them, and then figure out who the individual was. And then, as Deputy Commissioner Gramaglia stated, because this individual was a minor, or is a minor, we had to take extra steps to notify parents, figure out the best method for apprehending this individual in a safe manner. I want to, again, I specifically want to commend the Buffalo Police Department for their efforts in getting this individual in a safe manner this morning without incident. As everyone knows, there has been across the country a number of instances where police officers have gone into people's homes and bad things have happened. And this police department here in the city of Buffalo operates in a manner to make sure everyone is safe and everyone is taken out safely, and that no one is apprehended improperly, and that no one is put in danger when we are executing either search warrants or we are executing a SWAT team.
Do either of the suspects
This is a
have?
great job.
Do either of the suspects have prior arrest records?
That I can't comment on, because if I comment on that, then I'm perhaps, unduly influencing any further proceedings they may have.
John, going back to the shooting, on
Yeah.
Friday you said, quote, multiple gunshots.
Yes, there were multiple gunshots.
Can you describe the scene? I mean, was this 17-year-old spraying? Could
Well-
this have been much worse? Could you have
Oh.
had, or was he shooting in the air, or what was going on?
It definitely could have been much worse. We are, again, in the middle of investigating how actually it all went down. Again, getting back to Marley's question here, if I had great video, then I could answer that question to a T, all right? But I have the video that I got, all right? And so we do know that there were multiple shots fired. We know for sure that one shot hit the leg of a security guard who was coming toward the fight. We believe that another shot grazed the left flank of another young individual there amongst this 15 to 25 group. We know that one of the bullets struck a building of the school. Okay, so whether or not he was flailing around, and whether who she shot first, that we're still under investigation.
One more question?
Do you have an updated condition on the 14-year-old?
So I did visit the 14-year-old on Saturday in the presence of his mother. I'm not going to comment on his condition directly at the request of the family, but I will say he was able to sit up in a chair when I went to visit him. But being stabbed 10 times for anyone is physically and emotionally traumatic.
Can the police elaborate at all on the technology used about entering the suspect's home?
So the mayor and commissioner have been very very diligent about our SWAT team, the technology they have, the training they get. They train a lot. In this particular case, the new search warrant policies that have been enacted over the last couple of years also includes the use of drones, and drones did come into play in this case. We wanted to make sure that that all precautions were used prior to entering the home, for the safest entry for everybody involved.
Do you guys use no-knock warrants, like you mentioned the other incidents across the country where there's problems? Would you, Buffalo Police, already use a no-knock warrant? Or?
No-knock warrants are greatly restricted. In this case was a knock and announce warrant. Only a judge can issue a no-knock warrant. However, through our procedures, those warrant requests from within our department, our detectives, have to go all the way up through the chain of command. Multiple sets of eyes look at those, and that was part of the weekend-long planning process for how this was going to go. A knock and announce warrant was what was signed by the judge, and we took great time and care and technology before any SWAT members went into the house. The individual came out of the house on his own and surrendered to police. So that was what we always aim for, is a nice, safe outcome, and an individual to come out of the house to us under careful command. We also have a negotiator on scene for our raids that talks people through that process of how to come out of the house.
And so, what is the status of these two right now? Are they in jail?
Yes. Yep.
Are they staying in jail?
Yes. Until a judge will let them out, which I'm going to fight against. But obviously, we fought this morning to keep defendant number 1 in jail. When defendant number 2 was arraigned about an hour ago, we asked for remand, and he was remanded. He will then have, like I said, a felony hearing on Friday, and defendant number 1 will have a felony hearing on Wednesday. And so we're gonna request to keep him in jail the entire time, and we are going to obviously do everything we can. It's obviously much easier with the shooter to keep him in my jurisdiction. The defendant number 1, we're gonna do whatever we can to make sure that he's in my jurisdiction as well too.
For defendant number 1, we're hearing that there was an interpreter in court this morning. Is that true? And if so, is there any links to, like, say, hate crime or anything like that you're looking at?
No. Defendant number 1, I believe, is from Nepal, Nepalese.
Mm-hmm.
And so are you not looking at any kind of hate crime that happened during the school, racism, or anything like that? Okay.
Not at this point.
What about gangs? Are these kids part of any gangs? Is this gang related?
I'm not gonna comment on that, Hannah. Again, I'm not gonna, comment on any affiliations of anyone, because again, that would have a potential detrimental effect on a trial.
You said multiple people were involved in the stabbing, correct?
Well, multiple people were involved in the beating / stabbing of the 14-year-old.
So about how many additional suspects are you looking for right now?
As I said earlier, others with an S. I'm not gonna get boxed in with an exact number.
How difficult
Yep.
has it been to try and figure this all out, because there's been so many people, and you know, there's only so much that you have to go off of, and allegedly some of these suspects were wearing ski masks or something like that at the time. So how difficult does that make this process going out to try and gather all these people and try and bring everyone to justice?
It makes it very difficult, but we have an excellent police department here in the city of Buffalo. We have excellent police officers, we have excellent leadership in the Buffalo Police Department, and these officers are trained professionals, and that's their job, and that's what they do outstanding.
John, when we were there at the beginning that afternoon in daylight, you had evidence, the police department or whoever it was had evidence collection people working over the ground in the snowbanks in front of the greenhouse. You probably found cartridges, whatever.
Yep.
Okay. Were any of those in condition you could run them through the various computer systems, and if they had been used in other crimes?
We're doing that now.
But no word yet.
Yeah, correct.
Just my last question.
Sure.
Gun and knife still missing?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
And, just off topic, if we could, about the fire from this morning. Are you looking at any charges for the landlord? We're hearing there was no smoke detectors in the house.
It's under investigation.
And what about the other properties that the landlord owns? We're hearing there's other properties in the same neighborhood. Is there any inspection for those? How do we know that those other renters are safe?
Again, I don't personally get involved in the actual inspection of those properties, but in conjunction with this fire right here, if it spills over into anything else, then that investigation will bring that in.
Could we get the mayor up here on that issue specifically? Over the years, the city at intervals has pushed very hard on looking for smoke detectors, providing smoke detectors to people who can't afford them. Will this make you look at maybe doing that again?
We do it actually every single year. Every year that I have been mayor during October, Fire Prevention Month, we have open houses at firehouses in the city of Buffalo where we push the importance of having working smoke detectors in residential homes, in apartment buildings, and we actually distribute smoke detectors to the public at all of those events. So we will absolutely be doing that again this October.
Because obviously some of the landlords around town are from very far away, and you may not have much of an arm on them.
Well, we also do provide smoke detectors to tenants. We have a lot of fire prevention activities that the Buffalo Fire Department is engaged in during the course of the year. And, you know, from what we saw today, just a horrible, horrible tragedy. That's why the Buffalo Fire Department works so hard to spread the message about the importance of having working smoke detectors in the home, whether it is the property owner or to the tenant directly. And we do provide smoke detectors directly to tenants as well that can be easily installed.
Depending on whether they can read the instructions, we have people from a lot of language groups that have come here in the last couple of years and may not quite know, you know, how you do it.
Well, again, we do have an Office of New Americans. We do use a language line service, and when individuals inform us that they need assistance, we do try to provide that assistance. Again, today's fire was a terrible tragedy, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of the two individuals that were lost, the family of the two individuals that were lost.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
I don't get to bed until like 1:30. Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's good though.
No, he was not. He was a security officer working for the school district directly. Yes, yeah, the school security officers are not armed. They are employees of the school district. But school resource officers that are Buffalo police officers, they're all armed.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep.